Today we are doing a recent reads. Now I'm stealing this from Eleanor Reads. I did ask her. I was like, yo, can I steal this kind of setup? So what we are doing, although she's not the first one to come up with it, but she is who I got it from. So I have been noticing a downhill thing for wrap-ups. Wrap-ups take the most work to film. They also get the least amount of love. It seems that the booktube sphere is not really interested in wrap-ups as much, but there are books that I read outside of vlogs that I still want to talk about on the channel, but I couldn't figure out a good way to do it. I did try just recent reading, every time I read 5 books, putting it on there for a while, but that didn't work. I think what I'm gonna do is a bi-monthly wrap-up style thing where we discuss only books that weren't in vlogs. It'll probably be bi-monthly just so I have enough books to talk about, because most of my reading does happen in vlogs, and I will try to mention books if I think that they're important that you go watch the vlog. So this will be the January and February recent reads. So most of my January reads are part of Booktube Bestie. There are so many books that are part of vlogs. We have Hidden Pictures, Project Hail Mary, Sundial, Stolen Tongues, Sea of Rune, Along the Razor's Edge, Gabriel Fools, Cradle, City of Dragons, Legends and Lattes, The Collar Bound, Master Artificer, Sorcery of Thorns, Daughter of the Forest, and Her Soul to Take, which were all in Booktube Bestie episodes in January. There is a Booktube Bestie playlist if you're interested in my thoughts in any of those. I'm not going over them. What I will go over is the few reads in January that did not make it into a vlog. So we are going to start at the top. And the first book I read in January that didn't make it into a vlog is An Echo of Things to Come. I'm not going to go into detail on this just because this does have a live show. This is the series that we are currently reading for Backlist Bookclub. We just actually finished the 3rd book in February, but we had a live show for this, so I did read this in January. This got 2 stars from me. I am personally just not a fan of this series. Honestly, I'm gonna take Light of All That Falls and hold it up here because it's a series review for me here. Both of these got 2 stars from me. I think that they are both better written than the first one. I think the 3rd one is the best written, but I think that this series heavily revolves around the gimmick of time travel, and when you remove the time travel from the book, the actual characters, the plot, are all very lacking. So if you like the time travel and you find that intriguing, I understand why this would catch your eye. For me, more often than not, time travel is a negative. Some of my favorite books do have time travel, so it's not always a con, but I think that time travel is harder to do. Specifically in this story, it leans towards the idea of fate and not being able to change your destiny, which made it very uninteresting for me to read. Because a whole premise of this is that if you see someone die, that's when they're gonna die and they can't die before or after that. But that makes a book very uninteresting to me. I also feel the characters in this are just cardboard cutouts. They exist solely for the plot and to be powerful, all-knowing in the plot. I don't even remember half their names. I'm just really not a big fan of this series, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but they both got 2 stars. The first book got 1 star. If you're asking me, this is probably the worst series I've ever read. Personally. This is a personal opinion. I have lots of friends who love it, but yeah. So these are 2 that did not get vlogged, but do have live shows. Playlist on my channel that has them for Backlist. I believe 2 was on Mel's and 3 is going to be on Kaylee's. And just a reminder to anyone who doesn't know, the Lycanius trilogy is about a world where there used to be these things called augurs, and they had a lot of magic, but there was a revolt, and humankind, citizens, revolted against the augurs because they were too powerful and got rid of them. But there are the people that are the gifted that have slight magical abilities but aren't all powerful, and they just bound them to mankind's will. And we follow a character who is one of these gifted as things unfold. Yeah, crappy synopsis for book I didn't like. Okay, I just remembered how many books in January that I read outside of vlogs that I didn't like. I did not have good luck outside of vlogs. I had a lot of wins in vlogs, including some 5 stars. So the next book I read was The Visitor by Sergio Gomez, and I gave this 1 star. This is a short story about, it's around Christmas time, so I read it in January, it's close enough to Christmas. We have a snowed in, all of these people are on a road trip somewhere, blah, 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 and something happens to their cars, and it's snowy, and they get snowed in, and they end up at this diner, and then some creature also ends up at the diner and is a visitor. This just had No. The writing in this was just not good. Like, I just, if I'm being honest, like, I felt like this read like some 8th grade fan fiction. And I'm sorry if you liked this, you do you. But I did not. And there's like all of a sudden like guns in it and the aliens, it just hurt my head. I just was not a fan. This is a terrible review. And then we had How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is the point that I should learn that I'm not a fan of Grady Hendrix. Oh my god, there's so many books I didn't like. So I gave this book 2 stars. Grady is a interesting author for me, as I have loved Southern Book Club. I talk about Southern Book Club all the time. I love Southern Book Club. But every other book I've read since then, and I have not liked. I only have one of his backlist to read still. How to Sell a Haunted House is probably my least favorite, I guess, other than the one I DNF'd, but I actually think I liked the one I DNF'd better than this. This was the Late Night Crew unofficial book pick, so I didn't DNF it, but like I think I would have otherwise. But this follows our main character whose parents die, and she has to go back to this small town, or whatever town, I don't think it's small, but it's a town, to go try and work out with her brother how they're going to get rid of their parents' belongings and sell the house. But there is things outside of the realm of normal that are happening within the house. The first half of this book deals very heavily with grief. It tosses away Grady's usual campy, humorous style completely, and it's very just like grief heavy and very like serious in tone. And then all of a sudden we just hit a switch and it's completely off the rails. I'm not good with that. Like, I need you to set the expectations for a book quite early on so I know what I'm getting into. If you want it to be campy, you want it to be fun, you want it to be weird, I'm good with that. But you need to let me know early on. You can't just all of a sudden at page 200 be like, we're going all the way up the weird express now. Like, there's nothing about this book that felt spooky to me because it was just so unreal too. And like, I don't need a book to be real, but I need it to be believable. I need the author to make me feel like this is a believable moment, even if it's so ridiculous that it's not. And there are books that do that for me. I think Sour Candy is one of those by Keelan Patrick Burke that does that for me. Slimer is one. You just need to make me believe in this. And yeah, I really wasn't a fan. I know a lot of people like this. Grady is always hit and miss. So some people love him, some people hate him for each individual book. I think those are the only books I read in January that weren't in vlogs. My entire reading month was Booktube Bestie. So now we are in February, and February things started to change for me because I read The Lessons Never Learned by Rob J. Hayes. This is book 2 in the War Eternal series, and this is a series I started in Booktube Bestie. I read book 1 for Dom's Booktube Bestie video. I gave The Lessons Never Learned 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I think that this is a step down from book 1. I also gave book 1 4 stars. It is a step down just because it is a lot more, like the pacing's a little bit more off, and I really enjoyed the setting in book 1. But if you liked book 1, I think that you'll continue to like book 2 because Eska is just such a wonderful character. The War Eternal series follows Eska, who used to be a soldier of the... there's 2 empires, and I forget the names of them. One's the Aurelian, and that's wrong. She's the other empire. Okay, well, she was a soldier of this one empire who's at war with this other empire. They trained her from very young to be because she's a sorcerer. The magic system in this is so freaking cool. It's based on, like, ingesting things and having attunements to things, and, like, the magic does kill you, but if you're attuned to it, it'll kill you slower than if you're not attuned to it, and people who aren't attuned to it, like, die really quickly. I don't want to give too much away because, like, I just think it's such a cool magic system, but if you like more of a science-based magic system, really freaking cool, and the way it's handled in book 1 with, like, the experimenting on kids, I thought was really cool to, like, get their attunements. Anyways, we follow Eska, who was raised from quite young to be a sorceress. She, in the final battle, ends up surrendering, and then she ends up in the pit for this empire because that's where all their dangerous criminals go. Book 1 is Eska finding her way out of the pit. This series is told by Eska as a much older Eska looking back on young Eska, so you obviously know that she's going to survive, and you know quite early on that she is going to escape the pit and that there's so many adventures for her to have. I loved this style writing. I thought it really left me intrigued about things that were going to happen later on in the story, but I get that some people might not. The other thing is Eska is a very, 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 very unlikable character. I love her. She is the character of my dreams. She is this young protagonist who had the world just like thrown at her. Anything bad that could happen, any like torture, anything happens to Eska. And, you know, some people are just going to brush it off and they're going to be like good. Like they're just going to be like, we're going to see better days. Eska grovels. She's petty. She is set on revenge and she wants to make people pay for the things that were done to her. And she's just petty and a brat and she knows it. Like she's very aware of who she is. And I just think the humor in it is so fun. I love Eska. There's found family in these. And this series as a whole has one of my favorite friendships to ever exist. So I did read book 2 and I gave it 4 stars. And then right after that, I dived into book 3 and I gave that 5 stars. I freaking loved book 3. Now the series continues into book 4 and 5 and I actually have continued. But I would like to say that I think books 1 to 3 are a trilogy themselves. It feels very like wrapped up the like plot line you follow. Not to say that book 4 isn't set up within these books, but I just feel like Eska's story comes to like a circle and a completed moment within book 3, and then book 4 starts like a new duology for Eska's moment. We could just talk about book 4. I ended up giving book 4 a 3 star. I was very disappointed considering the emotional connection I had to book 3. I cried at the end of the book 3. I loved it so much. Book 4 is missing an important dynamic for me, and I think book 5 I am going to love again, and the series is still going to be a whole favorite of mine. If you're looking for an indie recommendation, please pick up the War Eternals. I freaking love them. I will compare them to both, I want to say both the Poppy War and Red Sister. They have similar main characters and similar themes of just, yeah. I just really loved them, and I really, really think that more people should pick this series up. It's indie, it's really good, it's on KU. I cannot wait to read book 5. And then right after that, I did end up reading The Girl in the Mountain, which is book 2 in the Girl in the Ice series, which is the second series in the same world that the Book of the Ancestor series is, which is one of my all-time favorite series. I gave this book 5 stars. I, too, really, really loved this one. The first book in the series was not a favorite for me, especially considering my love of the Book of the Ancestor series, because this does revolve in the same world. We don't exactly know when. Well, now I know when, but like when you start this, you don't know when it is, so I'm not going to tell anyone. And I just think that this series, although I think the characters are weaker in this than any of Mark Lawrence's other books, the world and the magic in this is just so freaking cool. And it is expanded on in so many ways that it's just like amazing. The Book of the Ice trilogy follows Yaz, who when her brother has to go into the Pit of the Missing, she follows him. So in this world, when some kids end up showing this certain aspect, they are pushed in a gigantic hole, which is called the Pit of the Missing, and they're never seen again. When her brother is forced in, Yaz says, "Oh no," and she jumps in after him, and then she finds out that there's just like a whole village underneath the ice of the missing, and they're living, and there's like monsters and hunters, and there's things that they're trying to survive by. It's really cold down there. They don't have all the things that they have up on the villages up top. No one's ever escaped, but Yaz and her found family group are set to escape. That they have their mind on it. They're going to escape, and they're finding a bunch of things out about the world as they go. I would really recommend this. I love Mark Lawrence. He's one of my favorite authors, and I think that he hit the mark with this series, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I cannot wait to get the 3rd book. 5 stars. Right after I read that, we hit 72 hours in the haunted house, which means I read 13 horror books for a vlog. So if you are interested in Dead Lake, Quarter to Midnight, Jack and Jill, Horror Store, Final Girls, What Moves the Dead, Ghost Eater, Haunting of Gillespie's House, Dead Inside, Cirque Berserk, Murders of Molly Southbourne, Blanky, or The Ghost Tree, go check out that vlog. It will be linked in the description bar below. It is about an hour, but it talks about all of those books, and in depth, and I'm really proud of it, so you should check it out. Now, the next book I read was A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. I read this for Steph from Steph Loves Book Club, Literature Club, because she has asked me to kindly co-host with it. This was the pick for the month of February. We have already had the live show, so you can go check it out. I gave this 2 stars. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this book. It is just all smut. 360-page book that is all smut. I would say probably about 30 of those pages is plot. I prefer my romance books, my smut books, to have just a little bit more plot than that. And so, yeah, if you're here for just like monster schmut the entire time, this could be for you. Otherwise, it's not. It is really, really well written. I enjoyed the smut in it, but I just like, I couldn't get past the point that like, it's 400 pages of literally smut. Like, I got so bored of reading smut. Even if it's with different monsters every single time. The characters were flat too. But anyways, not my kind of book, but could be yours. That's when I read the 4th Rob J. Hayes book, but we have already talked about it. Then I finished up the SPFBO vlogs, and I read Fire the Forebears, so you can go check out the SPFBO vlogs if you want to see more of my thoughts on this one. And there you go. Those are my recent reads for both January and February. Only things that were not read in vlogs. Let me know if you like this format, or I don't really know how else to do it. I'm just not, I don't think I'm willing to sit down and talk about all of my reads currently, especially at the pace that I'm reading. I'm reading about 20 books a month, and that feels like a lot to go over considering I've already gone over them in vlogs. If you're happy with this, let me know, because I really want to find a way to do some sort of wrap-up thing that works for everyone. If you have any other ideas, let me know down below. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I had a really good couple of reading months. Regardless of everything, I ended up having 4 5-star reads over the last 2 months, which is insane for me considering I had 10 last year. Like, all together, all 12 months, I had 10. So obviously I'm doing something good this year if I already have 4. Okay, so anyways, if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me some sort of horse emoji. There has to be a horse, right? And if you want to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon, all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day. That's my outro.